All right. I'm confused. There we go. I wasn't seeing a display. I was trying to make sure it's all working before I go live here, and it looks like it's live. That's actually a change because I've been doing it with the Streamlabs or StreamYard for a little while. So now that I'm back to doing it in the studio, or at least chose to do it here today, that was interesting how that works. So cool. Welcome to Vlog Thursday number 235. And so much to talk about, so little time. So give me a throw some messages here. Okay, perfect. As long as someone does, because then I make sure they're displaying on the screen. Cool. I'm pulling the right feed. That's the important part. So as long as I can see them up on the screen, so I see everyone here. Lots of people joining in. 50 concurrent viewers and running. The numbers are getting bigger. Yay. Among the topics we have for today, and I have, as always, a finite amount of time to do things, but one of the things that was on immediate discussion that I'm going to pull up here is the REvil ransomware people who kind of went quiet, but then this came up. And I just wanted to bring this up because this is, active discussion I'm having with some of my tech friends is, the Kaseya incident. We can't stop talking about it to some extent because it's a real, let's just call it another awakening, if you want to call it that. But there's a lot to it and a lot of details. And this particular piece of information is hot off the press, so to speak. But it's the fact that they gave away, or did they, how they obtain the decryptor. And what happened was, the Kaseya attack, they were asking 70 million. They reduced it, I believe, to 50 million, the REvil group. And then now they have a decryptor for it that has appeared at the same time the REvil ransomware people have vanished from the internet. Now, we think this is a temporary vanishing because as long as there's money in ransomware and REvil, for those of you not familiar with that particular way and methodology, it is a ransomware as a service with an entire affiliate system and probably a better and more helpful vendor system than we deal with in the IT industry. Cue last week's rant on signing up for vendors and things like that because it's never easy. It's probably easier to sign up as a ransomware as a vendor service, which is sad. But I don't know. Nonetheless, the challenges that come with it are interesting because where they get it, how they get it, how long will REvil be gone? Is this because of pressures? There's no official statement from governing bodies in here in the US that they put pressure on it. But I have a feeling there was some pressure, and at some point this could be REvil doing the whole, hey, we're bad people, we're the bad guys, but we're not bad guys, because we want to make sure that we help people out, and when things go a little too far, they will back off on it. So I don't know, I found it kind of an interesting discussion topic, the fact that it's now available. It almost puts a bow on the whole thing of being complete. And I tweeted out the other day, Huntress has some kind of final thoughts that they tweeted on the Kaseya ransomware incident, because there's one little piece of the pie that was kind of missing. And that little piece of the pie was the fact that we don't know how they got part of the agent ID information, which was a necessary piece of knowledge to break the flawed, fail open logic of the Kaseya web interface. So I did talk before about the Kaseya web interface being how the attack vector came through. But one little piece of information that was kind of left out was it did require that the attackers know an agent ID. Now, places you can get the agent ID are either by being inside the Kaseya system itself. Each instance has its own ID, or by compromising an endpoint where the Kaseya agent is installed. That would allow you to extract the ID out of the agent and have that agent ID that would then lead to the failure in the web interface that allowed you to get into the system and eventually, deploy this ransomware as they did. So it's kind of a really, I really like that aspect of cybersecurity. It's fun. Not that it's fun to have ever deal with attacks, but it's a puzzle, and it's a very intriguing puzzle to reverse engineer and solve all that. It requires lots of thought, lots of very smart people to reverse engineer this, and it just kind of, it's an interesting whodunit mystery to solve to get to the bottom of how the entire string of events occurred. And it's really important to understand that, because understanding how that stream of events occurred and how we got to that place is how we also prevent it. Because then we look back at the entire write-up and go, all right, where are the spots that we can improve security? Where are the spots we could have stopped this or prevented this? And how do we stop it from happening again? You know, so the entire exercise of cyber sleuthing it your way backwards to get to the goal is ultimately to put this timeline together so then we can take it back apart and go, here's all the little stops we're going to put in place so these things can't get this far again. So kind of fun diving in all this, and I found it really, just like I said, a piece of interesting information on there. Do you know anything about the WireGuard status in BSD? WireGuard's available in BSD. That's the status. Have you covered alerting when WAN goes down? pfSense will alert you. If I'm assuming you're talking about pfSense, pfSense will alert you when the WAN goes down, provided you have another WAN to get that information out of. So you have to have a backup internet connection or it's not going to alert you. So there's not much, yeah, that's how that works. Let's see. You got your Ubiquiti network set up with an edge router 4. What is the best practice for servers? Should I place them in a native VLAN? You segment your network based on levels of protection. It really has nothing to do with Ubiquiti. It's just best practice. Do you want the servers to be in the same network as the computers? Sometimes they have to be. It really depends on the type of servers. So I have a video where I break down like a small office network. I'm going to do a new edition of that to try to add that segmentation clarity. You know, generally you put your phones on a separate network because phones don't necessarily need to be on the same network as the computer. The servers, are they internal servers? Well, they probably have to be on the same network as the computers because they're using Windows sharing. Are they external servers because you're hosting something? They need to go on a different subnet because that's probably a safer place, because if they're being accessed externally, you don't want something to come in and pivot laterally, or east-west as they may call that. Your north-south is your ingress-egress into and out of your firewall. Your east-west is your lateral movement between your devices. So you create segments so things can't make east-west movements based on whether or not they need to communicate east-west. If they need to communicate, then you have to try to mitigate it differently. So it's not like there's as much a best practice until you answer the question first, what are those servers running? Are they a threat to another system through that east-west movement that I mentioned? Let's see. What do we have here? Oh, yeah, Akamai went down. That happened. So that is interesting news. Akamai doesn't usually fall down. You know, too big to fail. Is that what the words we're using here? So let's pull up the Akamai, aka MI outage. So, yeah, it makes top news stories when Akamai goes down. Look, CNBC, like your mainstream non-tech news sites, are going to be covering it because Akamai, between Akamai and a few other companies like Cloudflare, they really do make a large chunk of the internet. So when these companies have a mistake, or even Google or, you know, Microsoft with Azure, the world takes notice. So I didn't really dive into the details of it because I know it went down, it was back up. It seems to be fixed. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm sure it was I'm hoping a good debrief, but probably some configuration mistake was made somewhere. So definitely a thing. I would recommend an SG3100 over an edge router any day of the week because I'm just not a big fan of the edge routers. They are very command line driven. So I guess if you are very familiar with the command line interface on edge router, they are good in terms of that. Like if you know how to work all the commands and you have these advanced use cases, yes, the edge router is a pretty good device. If you want the incredible flexibility, all managed through a web interface, pfSense is a better system. And the SG3100 has no problem routing at 1 gig. So I have not covered setting up alerts inside of pfSense to like Telegram. Also, Telegram, turns out rolling your own security is a bad idea. I was debating if I should talk about that. This was a debate when I've talked about Signal versus Telegram. Tom, you should be promoting Telegram. And I'm like, one, Telegram doesn't have a clear business model. Telegram also doesn't have a clear methodology by which they did security. Some flaws were found in the way Telegram implemented their security. And I say their security because they decided to implement security not based on standards, but based on the way they thought that should be done. And someone has finally taken the time to look at that complexity and find some flaws in it. So anyways, that's my little rant on Telegram. Wasn't in my notes to do that today, but I thought I'd bring it up. Steve Gibson did a good rant on Security Now about Telegram, and he's right. Everything I agree with on Steve Gibson's episode of Telegram is very true. So some people like the ERX. Go ahead and use one if it makes you happy, but it's the challenge with the UniFi routing equipment is the same today as it has been for years. It's just not a mature platform in terms of features. When you have a lot of features that you want, Edge being further along than the UniFi routing equipment. So the UniFi stuff like your UniFi Dream Machine or the USG Pro series or the USG, they all fall really short of full featured capability. Edge, you can do a lot more than you can on the other one, but it requires a lot more command line knowledge. And then the documentation isn't, I would say, as robust as it could be to get certain things done. So back to why I recommend pfSense. Would you consider Bitwarden rolling your own security? Not at all. Bitwarden uses standard implementations. Bitwarden has gone through 2 code reviews by third parties. So Bitwarden's not using unusual security. They're using, matter of fact, very open and transparent the way they're doing it, and security that's been vetted by third parties through audits. And they didn't invent their own crypto for it. There's a difference between inventing your own cryptography versus using off-the-shelf cryptography and implementing a product with that off-the-shelf cryptography. When you use off-the-shelf proven cryptographic standards that have been well vetted, the challenge then becomes in how you implement them to make sure that you followed best practice in using those type of ciphers. So this is what Bitwarden did, was didn't invent cryptography. They decided to use cryptography that was existing and then use a third-party company to audit the way they implemented it. So that's not rolling your own. That's a very different use case, I guess you could say. So Bitwarden is not rolling your own security. What else do we have here? Is there an open source replacement for RDP or remote desktop gateway? I've not used it. Someone would probably have mentioned things like Guacamole, and I think it can be used in some of that way. So there's some tools out there. I don't use any of them, so I don't know because of lack of use. I don't have an answer. Something may exist. Tom probably doesn't know about it because I don't have a use case for that. I don't run into frequently the use case of getting into a series of desktops. But look, I feel like Guacamole can actually do some of that. And it's the Apache. I will pull it up. It's the because just searching for Guacamole probably won't get you what you're looking for. Apache Guacamole is a clientless remote desktop gateway. It supports standards like VNC, RDP, and SSH. We call it clientless because no plugins or client software are required. It runs in HTML5. It's kind of like a browser-based system for this. It's slick. I don't know if it solves what you're trying to do or not, but it's definitely a product out there. But that's Apache Guacamole. Back to my favorite line that I haven't used enough lately. I don't have a use case for that. Let's see. Does LTS have an old server you could buy? I don't know. I don't think so. Not really. I don't think we have any servers right now. I've given them all away to friends. We don't have. I mean, eventually we'll pull something out that will be an old server, but at this point in time, no. Do you centrally manage and monitor pfSense for MSP clients? Yeah, we have Zabbix set up to give us stats on pfSense. That there's not really central management. That's just central monitoring. Central management, no. You just log into them and update them. I don't, on an as-needed basis. Oh, let's see. What else do we have? I think I got all the questions. It's all right. On to more answers then, or more topics. Pop OS. So I'm working on a review of it because of people, asking me, do you still run Linux on your desktop? Yes, I do. Here is Linux on my desktop, and it works quite well. I am really liking the way Pop OS implemented this, and I wanted to bring this up too. This is just cool. Looks like an old CRT. And that's actually what it's called is, what is it called? CRT something? Yeah. It's just called Cool Retro Term. You can load this on there, and it makes it look, for no good reason at all, it makes it kind of that funny old CRT color. But anyways, that's not what I'm here to show you. I really like the Cosmic Desktop. I'm pretty happy with the way they implemented it. And this is a ThinkPad L480. And boy, I mean, I got Kden Live open here. Actually, let's not just open it. Let's do this. I'll load something into it. Yeah, this was a time lapse I did of the snow from a few months ago that I did on my laptop. But it's really fast. It's really smooth. I'm not running a super fast processor here. Of course, people care about specs. So this is Pop OS 2104. This is running GNOME 3384, which is what comes into Pop OS. This is only an Intel i5 8250U, and with the Intel graphics 620, and we do have 16 gigs of RAM in this system. So it's not a terrible system. It's not the fastest, latest, greatest. It's not a high-powered laptop. It's a reasonable one, I'd say. But in terms of the way Pop OS implemented the desktop switching or things like this, and I say things like this because being able to press the super key and get here, the way they switch between stuff and it rolls you between each one, it's become really fast. And if I want to do something like /home, it allows me to get to the folders, launch them from here, pull up this or do this and say, you know what, let's just drag this to another virtual desktop and do some file management over here. My overall feelings, because people say, what do you think? Do you still run Pop OS? I still run Pop OS. I still love Pop OS. It is still my, by far my favorite desktop. So it's been really where I think if you're considering the moving from the Windows platform over to the Linux world, Pop OS is still my recommendation for people just getting started, or even someone like myself who's a longtime Linux user. I think it offers the best desktop Linux experience available. Now, those are fighting words in the Linux world because there are people who are diehard for their distribution and would like to preach to you exactly why you should use Linux the way they use it. And this is the good and bad of Linux. The homogenized world of Windows means everyone runs the same thing at the same time, and we just grunt and cry about the fact that Windows, when they move something over or change a toolbar. In the Linux world, you get all the customization in the world. But for the greater majority of people, this is actually a problem because now we don't have a consistent desktop experience. I like the fact that I can customize my desktop, but some people want a more predictable, this is the way it works type of experience. So it's the good and bad. People who are Linux enthusiasts love all the flexibility we get. People who are used to the Windows world are going, too much choice, and now I'm confused a little bit, and it makes it harder for them to get started. But overall, Pop OS is still what I really give a big thumbs up to. Let's see. 90s dumb terminal, yes. And I started, matter of fact, years ago, back in my day, I started working on, and I'll pull them up. They're kind of cool. I don't know. We did some, I had a meeting today. We did some reminiscing because, why not? All of us are been around a while in the tech world. So we were talking about these. And this is actually what I used to use, was these WISE 60 terminals. That is what that looks like. So, yes, the cool retro theme here is the, as a matter of fact, how does NeoFetch look in this? That just looks cool. They had the bubble in the front. That's why you're seeing it like that. So yeah, the good old WISE 60 terminal. And later, after I moved these out, we moved to WISE 60 terminal emulation because I used to do AIX. But yeah, this was a lot of what I had to stare at. We used it for a lot of different things. So definitely pretty cool. But Fun old emulators. Oh, let's see. Have you tried XRDP and Pop! OS, and is there a decent working mailer for supporting Office 365? One, XRDP, I played a little bit with it. I like X2Go better than XRDP, but the choices may vary. X2Go, because it has its own client, just seem to be a little bit better, but XRDP, if you're not familiar with it, allows you to run it via RDP. I haven't done enough testing with it to really tell. I did some testing and found some, I don't know, I probably did something wrong. It didn't work, I think, when I first set it up, and I don't remember why. So I'll have to circle back on that one, because I actually was playing with it the other day because I had a couple ideas I wanted to test for comparing it to X2Go, and I don't know, that project is a VM that hasn't been finished right now. But I don't know what you mean by mailer for Office 365. That's a confusing one. What would decent working mailer? You have to expand on that question so I understand what you're asking there. Normally, we let, if someone has Office 365, they use Windows as the back, or the Windows 365 system to send the mail on the back end. So I'm not exactly sure what question you're asking there. What do you use for monitoring CPU temperatures, etc., across server services? Usually we just set alerts in the system. Usually, like if the Dell servers are iDRAC, so we'll set alerts there. We also use SolarWinds/Enable. That's our backend monitoring that we tied to everything else. Oh, I don't know that there's any decent mail client that supports Office 365. Use the web interface. Use Outlook, the Outlook web interface. That's all I can come up with. I don't think Outlook is ever going to work inside of Linux. I doubt it. I could be wrong. I mean, Microsoft may change their mind. Maybe they will, because people are really hating on Windows with all the security problems Windows has had as of late. So with the multitude of problems that Microsoft has with Windows, yeah, maybe they will eventually bring Office over there. But I'm not going to hold my breath on it. It's not available today, so the answer today is I don't know. Oh, let's see. Hey, awesome, Brett here. Good to hear that you've got all the things set up and running when pfSense and pfBlocker. So good to hear on there. Brand new Lenovo T14, and your issue is that the Intel driver is getting really slow speeds. Yeah, I don't know. So not sure on that. Oh, what's my opinion on servers? So we work a lot with Tech Supply Direct, and one of the reasons Dell makes a popular used server is they don't, as of right now at least, there's not limitations on like the Dell license for the iDRAC. If you get a Supermicro server or a Dell server and you have the enhanced lights out IPMI type management, Dell iDRAC system, or IPMI and Supermicro, both those servers don't have, to my knowledge, restrictions on the license. So if they license a device when you buy the Dell or the Supermicro, that license doesn't have a time expiration on it. My understanding from several sources, and I don't do much with HP servers, is that a lot of the HPs have licenses on it that expire, that when the server goes out of warranty, some of the license expire. The second thing about HP is not all of it, some things, but it's certainly not easy to find. When I was trying to Google for something that came up my forums, HP's known for putting updated drivers and BIOSes behind paywalls where they won't want to give you an update to it. Dell doesn't seem to do that. So I'm partial to Dell and Supermicro for the used server market and the new server market. I like both those companies. I'm not as big of a fan, but I also have not had deep experience with HP, and full disclosure, as I said, I don't know, because the debate went back and forth. I remember looking for something and finding out that HP wants registration information to even get to that, and it required some type of account and a subscription with HP, and someone else found another page that a different HP device but was able to get it without going behind like a paywall. I don't know. the fact that it was a challenge to find with HP and Dell, pop in that little stupid service tag and get right to what you're looking for. I think Dell does a better job on that. And Supermicro has, easy downloads off their website as well. So Supermicro and Dell are probably my choices. I generally are my go-tos for servers. But we've run into different things in the market, and if it's working, cool. Where's the video for a WireGuard plugin? Yeah, it's on my to-do list. It's not on my done list. So one day I will do a video. I do not have a schedule for my content. So because I don't have a schedule set, that I can't give you the date. I do videos when I'm not doing other things, is the best way I can describe it. So there actually has been a little bit of a slowdown because I've been doing so many other things. So I haven't been doing as many videos. Once I get back to finishing some of those other projects, and a lot of that's been consulting we've been doing with client after client or client, and I've been doing some storage consulting, building very large servers for clients, and in one instance helping build essentially like a giant data center type build out for a client. Those type of things just end up occupying a lot of time, making sure you architect that. So and then in between, more bids came in, so it kind of stopped me from doing some of the server stuff, or our video stuff, because I was doing server stuff. So let's see. All right, someone says that the ILO doesn't expire, but the firmware updates are behind a paywall. Okay. I will note this. The older HPs take ridiculously long times to boot. I don't know why. Dell takes a long time to boot if you have the life cycle controller turned on, which you can turn off and the server's still fine. So that's another punch to the HPs. I was always annoyed by the HPs, like what is this thing doing for 30 seconds? Oh, wait, it's just turning on, but not giving me any screen display. We had a couple HP servers here. I always find it kind of annoying how long it took to turn on. It was a pain because I go to reboot it and I'm like, oh, great, it ain't coming on. Wait 2 or 3 minutes. I'm like, oh, there's a screen again. How would you log systems with 2 million and more messages a minute? And what would you use to nice dashboard? Use Graylog. There you go. That's how I would log that. Oh, good. Crap. That's just something I like to hear. So I will watch Jeff's video, Craft Computing, over the HP license issue. That would be interesting. What other things I've been doing? Yeah, lots of... matter of fact, there's some of it's right here. Oh, here's one of them. There's some projects that are related to clients, and there's other projects that aren't related to clients, but they take longer to do. Like this is... this looks like, to you, your standard SFP ports, but this is actually a SFP28. So this is a 25 gig card. So a pair of these, could bond them together at 50. And out of my grasp, I don't know where it is now. It's over there probably. Anyways, outside of the range of the camera are a series of 25 gig cables. And if you're, well, I can just show you this. There is a 25 gig switch behind me. So that's at least one more project that it's taking a little bit more planning because there's a lot of stuff in the way here. We actually are rearranging and putting a new rack in another section of the office because we have more stuff than I have room to fit in the studio rack. And I don't want to listen to it all running in the studio rack because that'll interfere with there. But the AGG aggregation, the UniFi aggravation switch is something we're working on too. Now, of note here, there was a forum post over in my forums where they were complaining by the fact that UniFi calls this an aggregation switch, but one of the challenges, of course, is you could only aggregate 6, according to the person who was posting. But now, with the latest firmware, I think, yep, you can do more. So we can actually create, looks like 16. Does that work? Oh, changes are invalid. 8? Maybe I'm wrong. Invalid. Is it only 6 still? Oh. All right, I'm wrong. It is only 6. All right. There's supposed to be a firmware coming, according to someone who posted in my forums that fixes it. But these are some of the things I'm have some upcoming videos on, is this type of thing is going to be not just a review of this switch, but setting it up. What are the limitations? How do you get 25 gigs out of it? And what does it look like to test 25 gigs? Matter of fact, Synology reached out to me, and we're going to be doing a video on with Synology on some 25 gig connections and talking about what's needed for that. Now, before that, that's definitely going to be here is, let me grab a little box over here. And me and Jay had a good discussion on this, and this is an upcoming video as well. When do we use what type of cable? When do we use fiber? When do we use a DAC cable? When do we use more fiber? When do we use these connectors, which are SFP to RJ45 10 gig adapters? There's a lot that goes into that process of making sure you plan out your cabling. So I will be doing very soon a video on that topic specifically, where I break down what cables and when to use them. This is a pretty important aspect when you're building out any of these higher speed networks of, all right, I need this level of connectivity from here and here and here. Which cables go where? In the rack, DAC cables are your most cost-effective cables, which is why these SFP cards are a great choice for that. In the office, the 10 gig cables are RJ45, but it's sometimes you may want to run fiber over to another rack. So these are all those little details, kind of the scenarios and what you do in each scenario. And it's not like these are hard rules for everything, but they're good guidelines on how to plan that out. So I want that to be a very helpful video to a lot of people asking that question. And of course, with the 10 gig stuff being so affordable, this is going to be good answers for people getting started in the home lab environments as well. Let's see. What else do we have? Can't wait till the enterprise starts upgrading to 100 gig, meaning the cheaper 25 and 40 gig. The 40 gig are relatively cheap. The 25 gig, I think, because I did buy these used because I wanted to. This is part of what, when I do some of the videos, there's new cards I buy and expensive stuff. And sometimes I go and buy some used ones so I can talk about something that's like in the $100-something range, or I can't remember how much I paid for these exactly. I'll have to look it up. But I don't think these were more than $200 for a 25 gig card. I mean, it's not cheap, but then again, you're getting 25 gigs here. So yeah, that's going to be fun talking about that, that too. Any plans to do videos of projects? Well, all my projects I do are on video, so I don't understand the question. Let's see. What cable to use where? Read your mind. Yeah. Yeah, what cable to use where it's a common question. So what else do we have in here? It's really not easy to log and monitor bigger infrastructure and data center size. There's ways to do it. There are tools to do large-scale log monitoring. I bring up Graylog. I'm a big fan of the tool. I need to do probably some more videos on some of the things you can do with Graylog, and they've updated it a couple times since I did that video. The video still stands. Like, it's not, they've just added more features. So everything I talked about, the video works. They've added a few more things since that video, but basically the getting started video and their documentation still holds up. Graylog also can be built in a clustered setup. And when you deal with large scale logging infrastructure, a lot of these systems support cluster type management systems. And that's just because of the challenges when you have that many things. I actually had a great, and I'll be talking about their product pretty soon, and I'll bring it up for those of you just interesting. I got to meet some of the team from this. And it's called Selks. There's a post in my forums about it. And once again, not logging, but the same concept while building it out as a noded infrastructure. Selks is one of those turnkey Suricata-based IDS NSM system. I had a great talk with these folks about how this works as an intrusion detection system and for monitoring and creating alerts. And of course, it is very comparable, and I've not done a video on it because of the complexities of doing it. Is just a lot. And by the way, Security Onion does have videos on it, but this also, Security Onion, another way when you have to monitor a lot of things. Security Onion's another similar product in there where it's all open source and able to do some of that monitoring. And then like I said, it goes back to, and I mention these because it's usually what you want to monitor in some of these data centers is a combination of things. It's like, okay, we need some stats on the servers and stuff like that. We have logging, but then we also we need to monitor what's going on with all these IP addresses and where all this data is going. And that's where some of those tools come. And yes, these are scalable tools for doing that type of monitoring. And by the way, all three that I mentioned are using some of the Elastic stack because of the way you can cluster things in Elastic to build this larger monitoring system. So, hopefully that makes sense. What's your opinion on the backlash Ubiquiti has been getting? What backlash? People are always mad about something. I guess you'll need to be more specific about what they're mad about today. Why? The internet is angry about something every day. So which angry thing are you asking about? Ubiquiti doesn't really have a competitor in the home or even the small business space because besides Aruba Instant On, there's not many other companies out there that offer a non-confusing licensing scheme. And even the Aruba Instant On, because it's a channel partner stuff, it's not as easy to acquire. Ubiquiti being a direct seller puts them in the same category as like maybe TP-Link. That's the only real competitor they have in this space. Everything else becomes a convoluted, complicated mess of buy through your reseller and finding product information. You know, people will start mashing a keyboard pointing at Ruckus having solutions. I've been on Ruckus's website. Unless they've changed it since the last time I ranted about how bad their website is finding information, I don't really have an answer to the competitor that will just be one-to-one competitive with the way Ubiquiti does things. And then someone will say, but if you understand the Ruckus, the way it works, so you can find them used on eBay, great. But it requires this learning curve of figuring out which one doesn't need certain licenses and which systems work with what systems that don't require something to tie to their cloud infrastructure in order to make it work. That's where I always get confused. So yeah, we actually been testing the flying saucer behind us. Yeah, that's been not going well. It's going the way I expected it to go. We have been testing TP-Link Wi-Fi 6 versus UniFi Wi-Fi 6, and the results may shock you. That'll be my lead-in for the whole video, right? Do some clickbait so people click on it. Basically, the challenge with testing Wi-Fi 6 is the wildly different numbers we keep getting. They're not consistent, but that's actually been part of the fun of why we can't just give you a definitive answer on Wi-Fi 6. We want to be very realistic across a lot of devices on it. It works. The TP-Link does well. The UniFi does well. The TP-Link does better, I think right now, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think the TP-Link was doing better when it was close, like if the devices are closer to it than the UniFi. But when you get the devices further apart, the UniFi has a more consistent speed at distance than the TP-Link. So take that for what it's worth. And I say distance, I mean like just a different area of the office versus line of sight versus another 15 feet. So not like at the limits of its edge in terms of distance, just a little bit further away, the UniFi starts getting faster than a TP-Link. So that's why it's so hard to test that. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Doesn't MikroTik compete with Ubiquiti on price, but in complexity, MikroTik's complexity is substantially higher than UniFi, so they compete on price. That's where it stops. UniFi has a much more cohesive, put together interface, and you just don't get that with MikroTik. I don't understand. Like the technicians who've taken the time to learn MikroTik, awesome. But they kind of just do this whole joke, oh yeah, it's really hard. You have to do these weird incantations. But once you learn that weird incantation, and you can, the Latvian logic, I see that term used and thrown out there a lot. Yeah, once you understand the kind of Latvian logic of the bad interface, you get over the fact that it's, hard to use. You figure it out that you copy paste this right here. Okay, that's fine as long as you're willing to pay with your time and learn a complex interface. UniFi, for all their faults, have done a great job of making VLANs easy for a lot of people to understand and implement. They just kind of made management of a lot of systems easy compared with anybody else. That's what kind of sets them apart. The only other companies that have nicer management tools for doing this are these companies that charge you a lot of license fees to host their controller, and that's just how it is right now. So that's kind of why Ubiquiti can keep goofing up, because they don't have a real market competitor, and it's hard for a market competitor to slip in because it's not like they're charging at this really high margin. That means I could start building a product and, you know, make enough money to really fund it. Someone would have to really put some financial backing to build a competitor against Ubiquiti. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. No, I will not bother with the UniFi Dream Machine SE. I don't have any plans on reviewing it right now. It doesn't interest me that much. I didn't care for the UniFi Dream Machine Pro. Over time, it's not been the most wonderful device, and yeah. I think it's funny because someone just mentioned, they said, UniFi VLAN reminds me of how easy Zyxel used to be. Just one page, configure everything. Zyxel did reach out to me. Zyxel's has so many problems with security. We declined to even review their products. They wanted to know if, you know, companies reach out to me quite a bit and offer more and more money for me to review their products. And I don't do reviews in that way. I don't, like, you can't contact me, pay me to say nice things about your product. This isn't how I work. Now, what's the unfortunate thing about the way the world works over in YouTube is not everyone is as forthcoming about that. Sometimes people get paid to talk about products. I have opted not to do that, but I'm also opting out of thousands of dollars per video that these companies will pay. We actually been going back and forth with someone who wants to pay me to talk about their service they offer, and it's just funny because they just keep throwing more and more money at me to try and see where I say yes to a paid video. And before someone says, well, isn't it illegal? The Federal Trade Commission says people can't take money for things and not tell the audience. Sure, it's illegal. Does it happen? Of course it happens all the time, because who's going to tell the Federal Trade Commission? Because the person paying isn't going to disclose it. The person getting paid doesn't want to get in trouble, so they're not going to disclose it. So yes, all the time on YouTube, people are being paid to say nice things about stuff. And it's not just the tech industry. This is much more widespread than just tech. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, because you need to get a UDM Pro right now. Because some people are really excited and want to tell you to do something right now. Yes. See, this is where, you know, we're pretty clear as much as we can be on this. We don't allow any editorial by the company. Matter of fact, some companies don't know we're reviewing their products because we buy them ourselves. And me and Patrick from Serve the Home have talked about this. And Patrick's the same way. He goes and buys something out of his pocket, pays for it, and then reviews it. And I just am doing the same thing. It avoids anything. Now, sometimes I like when companies send me things and I will review it, but it still does not give them editorial control over what I say about the product. I'm always very clear before they send me something is, you don't get editorial control. This is what I'm going to say about the product, like it or not. And, you know, actually Cisco keeps wanting to pay me to do reviews. I won't do paid reviews for Cisco. That's why when I did the Cisco, like the Catalyst 1000s, I bought them out of my own pocket to do the review because I wanted to give an unbiased opinion that cost me money to do. And it became that way people know it's not paid by Cisco, because Cisco does seem to want, based on the emails I got from them, I'm under the impression they would like me to do the review in a certain way. So that's definitely, yeah. Let's see. What else? Did I miss anything in here? I'm not even diving into securing. There's a ton of guides out there for securing Windows and checklists for that. Not my staff does that, not me. I'm not the biggest Windows person. I can talk about concepts in Windows, but I'm not the guy. There's a reason I do Windows videos. How's that? So, and securing Windows is a nightmare. Follow me on Twitter for me complaining about stupid problems and security issues. Because did you know Microsoft decided to break the SAM security by not break it, they just opened it up. Opened it up is a better description, which of course, opening up your security account manager to the world, well, to low privilege users. Yeah. Or look at the print nightmare, how many CVEs are we up to? 4 different CVEs or 5 different CVEs on print nightmare. Microsoft is a security nightmare. It's a bigger nightmare that Microsoft is insecure by default. There are things, the fact that you're asking that question is part of the problem with Microsoft. The team at pfSense, I've heard them say things like, if there was a better default, it would be the default. And that's actually a lot of the community in the open source security world. You'll find a lot of products like that. Well, if there's a better way to default secure it, we'll set it that way. Microsoft's like, we're not even telling you how we broke this. We're not even going to put out great guides to securing it. It's going to be insecure out of the box, and good luck figuring out while everyone argues about the best way to secure Windows. They're not great about that. Let's see. Yeah, vulnerable by design. That's a great phrase that was in there. So, Microsoft has done it's such a good job of creating their monopoly that I feel that they're at the top and just don't care anymore. They we climbed to the top. We've sued everybody out of existence to try to be a competitor with us, whether they were right or not. They would just tie them up with legal fees. And now Microsoft's at the top going, we'll get around to security. What are you going to do? Switch? What are you going to do? Not use us? The enterprise world is forced to use them. So it is what it is right now. Best place to get cybersecurity knowledge. That's a broad question. Follow John Hammond. He does a great job of breaking down all kinds of cybersecurity topics. He's an actual threat hunter working for Huntress. I'm a huge, big fan of John Hammond and the work he does. There's a few other ones out there. Who is it? Live Overflow. I should probably make a list and keep them somewhere so I can just fire it off. But start with John Hammond and you'll probably get a lot of good suggested videos for people that do good cybersecurity training. What do I think of the internet outage that happened at Akamai? It happens. Maybe Netgate should get into the switch and access point business. That would be cool. It's a big business to get into. It's even more challenging right now in 2021 because of supply chain shortages. So, yeah. I mean, I would like them to get into it, but that's not an easy, short path to ramp up on. So, Security Now podcast. I'm Steve Gibson. Definitely, he's been around a long time. Listen to all of his episodes. It's solid. Trying to think too. There's a couple academies. I'm trying to remember which one's good though. I don't know. I do it as a hobby, I guess. I mean, I do it professionally too in some ways. I just hang out with all those people and I got smarter from it. Like, talking to people like John Hammond and the team over at Huntress and things like that. Yeah, Microsoft is definitely job security for InfoSec. One of the challenges that I face is when you've been working in an industry for 25 plus years and all the gray hair to go with it, my knowledge didn't come from a specific training source. It's the accumulation of everything. And I also don't think of it from a documentation standpoint because I don't have formal training or certifications. So I've just acquired knowledge over time. So this is sometimes why it's harder for me off the cuff to say, oh yeah, just take a class at such and such university because that place has got a good program. There are a lot of places with good programs. I've never evaluated them, so it's hard for me to throw an opinion out there on things like that because it's not how I got there. So at least I still have hair. Yeah. Do I think there's a gap in the market to write a web UI for managing various devices? There's a few companies that have tried to do that. I think putting a web UI on top of some of those other devices, I think every time I've seen people talk about it, they realize just how hard that is to do. So if someone can actually sit and do it, sure. The challenge is, I'm trying to remember the name of the company that did that. They try to create like a single pane of glass, and they tie into different network switch equipment, but it was like they tied into Cisco, they tied into Aruba, things like they tied into really the higher end switches to try and give you that. But I remember them interviewing an engineer in a podcast. This is a while ago. I heard this of how challenging finding out when something is deprecated and then having to modify their system. And this was also a system that was extremely expensive just to keep up paying all the engineers that kept doing the integrations, because it's not integrate once and use, it's constantly integrate. So the concept is there. Is there a market for it? Sure. Do people have a budget for it? Because this is why a lot of places settle on a unified platform. They either go with like all Cisco, all Aruba, all Palo Alto, all Fortinet, and they choose a vendor like that because that way they can have one unified interface and not have to deal with the multitude of interfaces that you deal with. So as much as I think, is there a demand for it? Because it would make the ease of having a non-homogenized network, of having everything individual, great. Do I think it's practical to do? Less so. I don't know if someone has the budget for it, because by the time you hire a team of engineers to keep writing it and maintain it, what would you charge for that product? And would it be a cost savings? There's where the problem starts to come in. What would be your first choice for a directory of 100,000 users? You need OU, GPO equivalent, managers, granulars, Active Directory. I would go with Active Directory. Yeah, curse word, single pane of glass. Everyone's trying to do it. Yeah, every salesperson uses that buzzword every day. Everyone's trying to create the single pane of glass for everything. It's a pipe dream. The cost of convenience is quite high. At some point, it's cheaper than paying for a product like that to have a staff that's cross-trained on a couple different things. I mean, that's kind of what you're coming down to. You want it to be an easy-to-use UI. Why do you want anything to be an easy-to-use UI? Because I can hire a less expensive person to manage it at that point. But then if that expense is then eaten up in product, then I didn't solve any of those problems that I'm trying to achieve. So that's I don't know. I'm not an expert on that particular market. Those are my thoughts from being in the market, but I don't know that it's necessarily the way you're going to solve it. Yeah, Cisco DNA Center. There you go. There's one of them. But the cost of Cisco DNA, yeah, exactly. And cross-training staff. It's also tricky for people to be good at it, and this is where we come in. And this is something that I think this is where we are growing as Lawrence Technology Services. This is also where other companies are growing in this space. It's the co-managed IT space where internal IT teams focus on line of business application and supporting the internal IT team processes, such as making sure all the users have everything they need all the time. But when there's a project, an upgrade project, you need a new storage server, you call in a storage specialist to consult with you. And those are things where we specialize in. Same thing with network infrastructure. We deal a lot. A lot of the consulting we do is internal IT teams that have a management challenge of, all right, we need to upgrade all our switches. We'll call you guys, and you guys can get us all some switches and program them, set them up, and turn it over for us to manage. That's usually how that works. That's one of the more common use cases. So cross-training staff is one thing, but more of bringing us in to solve that problem is what happens. Less capable staff. You want to make things easy for staff to manage so they can take care of actions. there's a balance that needs to be had. But the only way I can really describe it would be, having less capable staff that can manage those particular aspects of it. What else do we have in questions here? I think that's all we have on the questions. I got to wind this down. I will throw out the staff announcement that I put in there. We'll do some videos on this. The staff change that's happened here is Brett, who you've seen before. Brett was a contractor. Now Brett works here full time. So me and Brett will do some more videos talking about some of the internal process stuff going on related to that. Part of the goal of bringing Brett in was so I can do more focus on technology and making videos and doing the consulting side. And Brett's going to manage the business side of the house here at Lawrence Systems. He's better at it and has a stronger desire to do it. Burned out isn't the right word, just not, I don't know, maybe a lack of interest in as much of the day-to-day business operations. So I like doing tech more than I like business. That's always been my passion. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. And I want to do a few more business videos around some of those topics and contractors and things like that. So when you do those big updates for clients, do you provide training too? Is that part of your business? Yes, no. Training on, like, if I set up a TrueNAS server for someone, I'm not going to train them from top to bottom how to use TrueNAS. I will show them the things necessary for them. I will answer questions. So kind of trainings included, like how to use it. But obviously, I also have videos on these topics that people often, that's how they find us. They watch one of my tutorials on TrueNAS and then said, hey, that looks like someone I want to hire to build my TrueNAS. So kind of trainings included. It's not like we're a training service, so to say, but so that's kind of a mix. They usually know enough about the product that there's some levels of training. We do a lot of hand holding on pfSense, obviously, when we set that up for clients. But once again, I have so many tutorials on it, they can usually find the level of training that they're looking for. Tech is more fun than business. I think so. What else do we have in here? I haven't used Slackware forever. I mean, I don't know that I ever got Slackware installed. I remember trying to install it. I can't remember how long ago it was, but forever. So I've not touched Slackware 15 years, maybe longer. It's been a very long time since I've even looked at Slackware. So I know it's out there. It's making somebody happy because it still exists. So it's just, I switched to Debian in like 2000, maybe 2001, somewhere around there. So after 20 years of using Debian, I've touched the other ones, CentOS and things like that. I started in Red Hat in the 90s, moved to Debian, never looked back. Would you agree that as a tech person that you are sort of forced to join the ranks of management at some point or your career does not progress? Kind of. Depends where you are. The management path is good for some people. It's great to have people who have a technical background in management. My friend is making that life choice right now. He knows a lot of tech in a very deep way. He's also getting pushed into management. It kind of depends. If you're a really strong cybersecurity or threat researcher, what's your top of your career? Finding more bugs and CVEs? I mean, it's a career that can pay $150,000 or $200,000 a year. But then again, management maybe pays a little bit more. So I guess you have to define your own goals to decide whether or not you think your career is topped out or not. And I don't know what topped out is for you, and it's probably not the same for someone else. People ask me about Tailscale. I don't have an interest in it. Like, it's a paid service for WireGuard. It seems to come up anytime I've talked about like zero tier, and I'm like, zero tier is a different type of networking. Tailscale is a paid service that uses WireGuard in the back end to connect things. Not open source, but is a management plane for an open source tool. But I don't have a use case for it. Like, I guess if you want a third party, I don't look much beyond zero tier because the way they implement it, I think, is probably better for a lot of use cases. Tailscale is just not, I don't know. I don't have anyone who it's not an interesting product to me. It's also a very large commercial, well-funded product with a marketing team. I'm not really part of their marketing team, so there's not there's not an interest I have in that product that makes me go, that's cool. It looks neat if you have a use case for it. So apparently enough people do because they have a lot of money. What else in here? I don't use Ansible that much, but some. I've got some videos I've talked about doing Ansible. I don't use it day to day, not a lot. Yeah, Tailscale has a free personal use thing, but you're also relying on their back end to manage your networking. I am always start at zero trust for things. That is a better place to start, because once you start going, someone else has the management control plane for my VPN. Okay, how do you trust that someone else? If they're orchestrating the VPN and not transporting the data, but could change the configuration. I fully upfront about this. This is one of the things with zero tier that's a challenge. Zero tier is a secondary network adapter on all the devices that you want in your zero tier network. But this is an important but, the zero tier system, if someone were to get in to the control plane of zero tier, that would give them IP level access to add other nodes within your zero tier network. That is a not zero trust. It's close because it's only IP access and not actually access. And you can do your own filtering on each node to help prevent and mitigate that. But when someone else is controlling the control plane of your VPN, who's to say that they don't change where it goes or who they add into that control plane? Because the control plane is what's controlling it, not the individual firewall. That's my problem I have with a lot of those, is you're adding more spots where people have the potential to get in between. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's my full thoughts on that particular thing. The Nebula is another one I did a review on, and I know they've done a lot of improvements. I thought about setting it back up again. Nebula is cool because you control the entirety of the control plane. You control all the nodes in the structure. Therefore, if you spin one Nebula up in a public cloud, and that Nebula is the broker for all the other nodes in your Nebula, you control it from top to bottom. That's actually one of the reasons I did a review of it, to show an alternative out there for people that are looking for some type of, networking tool similar to zero tier, but then gives you full control of everything from point to point with no third parties ever accessing the data. So that's that's just one of those, when you're thinking about it. Like I said, I don't have a use case for Tailscale. It looks cool. I mean, hey, people get sold on easy things, but easy and security are often very much against each other. Hey, it's great. This company will control all my stuff for me. What happens if the company's compromised? Well, I guess someone else gets to control all the stuff that's connected in there too at the same time. So something to think about. SG-1100 that randomly reboots, never had the problem. We've actually not had any of the SG-1100s die. I can't think of even one. We haven't sold a ton of them though. Majority of what we sell is SG-3100s, and I think we've only ever had one of those have any issues. Overall, the Netgate stuff's pretty solid. All right, seeing any more questions, I'm going to wind this down. My son wants to go somewhere, and I told him I'd take him somewhere. So I got to get him some pizza. That's usually, I can't believe he's not in here chiming in and punching buttons going, Dad, where's the pizza? Where's the pizza? Oh, I'm speaking of YubiKeys. Yes, I have some upcoming videos on YubiKeys. I'll leave me talking about YubiKey with Bitwarden, because yes, you can use YubiKey with Bitwarden. So that's something we'll be doing a video on. I want to finish. I don't have it integrated yet, but I want to integrate it into Ubuntu/Pop! OS as well. So that'll be another thing we do talk about with the YubiKeys. And SSH and everything else. There's lots of stuff. Hit the like button. There's 206 of you, but only 61 likes. So if we could hit the like button before we reach the end of this, that would be great. Love seeing the pizza icons in there. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all 200 of you for coming and hanging out with me for a little over an hour. So we put some time in there. Yeah, the YubiKey stuff's pretty cool. I do like the YubiKeys. They solve some interesting security challenges for sure. And there's so many security challenges. Oh man. I think I don't have anything else to share. All right. Pizza, awesome. Thank you. All right, now I got enough like button smash. There's 94 of you. So if you watch this in post, go ahead and watch it again. Once again, hit me up in the forums. Hit me up on Twitter for those of you who like to communicate with me or talk about video ideas and things like that, or just check on what's going on. Follow me on Twitter if you want to see me rant about the latest Microsoft security stuff. That seems to be something I've been talking about. Of course, I'll be posting more pictures of 25 gig things as we get them set up. And thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm out.